Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you guys my farmer's market haul because I went to the farmer's market. I went to a midweek farmer's market that's at this local kind of like casino area. I decided to go up there for the first time and just see what was going on. I saw a lot of the vendors that I already knew, and I love to shop at farmer's markets. So I decided to make this video kind of a farmer's market haul, plus finally talking about my college bachelor's of science that is like this mysterious, I never explain it, but I have it thing. I'm only gonna explain some of that to you guys, how that correlates to my life, how it can correlate to your life in a practical way, explain the differences in farmer's market food versus Walmart. Okay, so first and foremost, we're gonna admire my hairstyle, which is, I don't wanna deal with my hair. Cutesy little bun. Thing that I got from the farmer's market today, local honey. And local honey is really great for allergies, obviously, and bees are essential to ecosystem. What's an ecosystem? The organisms that are all around you. So I got this little tiny, like honey sampler. This is lavender infused desert honey. So I don't know. I'm gonna just have this straight because I am dealing with some allergies, and so a natural way to do that is to just kind of take like a teaspoon of local honey and just have that multiple times a week. First up, I wanted to support a local baker, which is another benefit of farmers markets, is that you can support local artists, local bakers. Everyone's gonna be local, so you're supporting local business and the local economy. I got a cinnamon roll for free. Got it for free because I bought 3 items. Sourdough, like cheese, artisan loaf, ham and cheese, which I already ate for lunch today. I got these 4 Brazilian truffles. Now an interlude to briefly discuss my degree, and then we'll get back to the haul, and then we'll keep discussing my degree and just flip-flop. I have a bachelor's of science in environmental management. That means that I know a lot about ecosystems. Biology was my minor, so biology, atmosphere. I know a lot about emissions, environmental chemistry, physics, mainly when it comes to water. I'm well versed in watersheds, urban development, sustainable development, agriculture, aquaculture, sustainable agriculture, and the boring stuff to me, which is regulatory agencies like the EPA, the federal level, meaning at the government level, all of the agencies that we have, the standards that are set. So we have standards for water, we have standards for air quality, and those were all set from acts, such as the Safe Drinking Water Act, changed history, and made it so that things like your food is regulated. Okay, and next up, I supported another local baker. We love that. And he was selling a bunch of little mini loaves that he made. It is a lemon blueberry loaf. So this will be really good in the morning. Just cut a little slice, have that with your coffee. So a part of my degree, an aspect of my degree being agriculture, has a vested interest within me because of my family's own ventures in agriculture, and it really just kind of has like a place in my heart. Also focused on was sustainable agriculture and where the United States Department of Agriculture plays a role in compliance with organic foods. For example, sometimes organic foods aren't actually organic, okay? So with the regulations and the federal agencies that we have that are looking at things like that, we're able to correct those issues so that the food that's on the shelves is genuinely organic, USDA certified organic, and not just organic, so that they can kind of evade certain things. Different benefits to farming sustainably to not farming sustainably. So for example, if you wanted to farm sustainably, you could apply for a USDA grant and be like, this is my project, this is what I want to do, and go from there. The government is willing to fund people who want to develop sustainable agriculture, or even like what I've seen in my local area is I've seen the carports where people are parking and the roof that's solar. A really cool way to implement sustainability in the urban community. Now, it's kind of ironic that I know so much about watersheds, seeing as I live in the desert, but I got my degree on the East Coast, and so I know a lot about watersheds and urban watersheds. Urban watersheds being, when I lived in Virginia, my house, for example, it had impervious cover over it, meaning that rain is going to fall right off of it and it's going to go onto the ground, and then it's going to go onto the street, and then it's going to go into a drain, and then the drain is going to go into the bay, etc., etc. Know how to calculate rainfall, how to calculate how your dwelling structure is affecting the rate of water flow around you. How many gutters you have does make a difference. Storm stuff. So for example, your girl's not gonna get caught in a flash flood, okay? As aloof as I may seem, I'm not getting caught in a flash flood. Like, I know a lot about the weather in terms of looking up at the sky. Like, there's a lot of cloud seeding where I am. I don't agree with that, actually. As an environmentalist, I'm allowed to have my own opinions, and my opinion is that I don't agree with disrupting that nature cycle. I don't. I was also taught a lot about energy, and I am proud to be an owner of a home that is completely solar powered. So I am literally living the dream in terms of my home being completely solar powered. My bill is literally $80 a month. It doesn't matter how much I use or don't use. I have a surplus because of where I live in Las Vegas. You'll see a lot of wind energy. You'll see a lot of solar energy out in California. You'll see a lot of wind energy. There needs to be space for the wind turbines to go up. Back to the farmer's market haul real quick before I bore you all and you're like, okay, I'm leaving. Because the thing is that I say I have my bachelor's of science in environmental management, right? Okay, I'm literally a scientist. Doesn't mean that it's like extremely interesting to most people. Because Kitchen Spices, I love her. She's at the farmer's markets around Las Vegas. I got her Taco Tuesday seasoning, and she's probably gonna take another picture of pumpkin this year for the pumpkin spice seasoning, but she took a picture of pumpkin last year at the market, and it was so cute. Something I learned during college that I have a vested interest in as well. I'm gonna talk about birds at the end, because we all know that, like, if you know me, you know that I'm writing a bird guide and that I love birds, but I'm gonna get to that at the very end. I have a vested interest in atmospheric chemistry and what's going on in the atmosphere. I think that was probably one of my favorite parts of my studies, because emissions are greenhouse gases. And so the heating of the atmosphere being the overall global warming effect, to me, is very fascinating, and I learned a lot about how to manually calculate things that we have technology for, such as air quality tests, seeing what's in the air. So like, when you look at the weather report, I read the weather report completely differently now. You'll see something called AQI, the air quality index, and you'll see a scale of, you know, red to green. And that pretty much tells you, if you go further into that, you can click on your AQI and it'll tell you the primary pollutants. So typically in a major city or in a city environment, you're gonna have the primary pollutants of particulate matter and ozone. It's typically gonna be particulate matter 2.5, and particulate matter is really small matter. However, it still is matter. So breathing in particulate matter means that groups with asthma, groups with pre-existing respiratory conditions are at risk when the air quality is low, or there's a day where it's low and particulate matter is exceptionally in the air. Now, ozone is basically coming off of our cars, and it's going up into the atmosphere. It's mixing. Carbon dioxide is also in the atmosphere as basically a greenhouse gas, because carbon dioxide has huge heat trapping capabilities. And so in the atmosphere, that's where that's kind of detrimental. We don't want more warming of the atmosphere. The natural ozone layer that we have has nothing to do with the ozone that's coming off of the troposphere. Tropospheric ozone is going to be different than ozone that's ozone layer that we have naturally that's beneficial to the earth. We're creating an ozone layer that shouldn't be there. It's really interesting to me. I love to see things in real time like smog. Smog is mainly particulate matter, and it's gonna be that gray haze that you see over cities, some Californian cities, not to throw California under the bus either. Hey, let's look at some more stuff from the farmer's market. So first of all, I got a bell pepper. And this is significant. I want to talk about this because, as you'll see, it is small. It is small because we have something called genetically modified organisms. Genetically modified food is going to make a higher yield. Higher yield leads to feeding more people. So the concept behind genetically modified food can be explained very logically and very objectively as I just stated it. Non-genetically modified food is gonna have a smaller yield. This is organic from a farm. This is from a farmer's market stand. So at the store, when you're getting organic bell peppers, they're probably not gonna be this small. When food is on the shelves to feed people, we don't want a yield this small. We want a yield that's a little bit more than just this. And so that's why you'll find things at the farmer's market that are small, like limes, lemons, peppers, and little things, because think about how you'd grow it in your backyard. Would it come out like a perfect GMO bell pepper every single time? No, because we're not genetically modifying our food. We cannot get the same result as a genetically modified food. I grew up in Maryland, so I grew up in an agricultural state where there's a lot of farmland forever signs, which basically means that that land cannot be developed on. I love that. I hate to see land that is perfectly good for farming being destroyed for developmental purposes. I think that's like, gives me the ick. But I grew up on a farm, and then I also grew up in the era of the Chesapeake Bay being an absolute disaster. And so that was also a huge like thing that I learned. I think that led to my college actually like making me learn about watersheds and stuff like that, because we were on the water. A lot of key organisms in the ocean and just in our waterways in general that just generally help things. Also, erosion is a huge problem, and of course all of the chemicals that we use, they go somewhere. So once it rains in Las Vegas, you'll see oil all over the roads, you'll see a lot of things come up. And all of that's gonna drain somewhere. And so what we don't want is for all of this waste to kind of be just dumped into waterways. Us have changed with different administrations that we've had. And so a law that's been implemented that I like, or an act that's been implemented, is one where, let's say that you own a farm and there's a river out back. There's a river, but it's a very long river, but your property backs up to a certain portion of that river. You are responsible for that river meeting standards. Sometimes federal level will delegate this to the state. And so let's say that you live in like Mississippi, okay? Yeah, let's say that you live in like Mississippi, or you live in like the South. There's just, there's a creek or a stream. You're responsible for that creek or stream to not be extremely polluted. Responsible for your portion of the waterways, if that makes sense. I'm also a horse girl, and I love farms. I love just everything that has to do with farm animals and the whole lot. And so I also had kind of like a case study that I did in college that took me a very long time, but I did a deep dive on agricultural emissions, which is something that you wouldn't really expect to be a thing. We do have agricultural emissions, and so cattle is at the top. The United States is the #1, we are at the top in terms of cattle emissions because we consume a lot of beef. Cattle emit methane as a byproduct of their enteric digestive process. So the way that they digest their food, their belches and what's coming out the back is emitting methane. So think about when you have thousands of cows together, that's significant for the atmosphere. I found that to be very, very interesting, what we're doing about that, because what we're doing is feeding the cows different diets, because things that already exist, like in the ocean per se, like different seaweed, different types of hay, things that can be grown easily. help with them not producing so much methane. And I think that's wonderful. So a lot of universities are taking over that. A lot of farmers are being given incentives, government incentives for implementing new practices to reduce the amount of methane and agricultural emissions from their facility. And by the way, methane is a greenhouse gas. You can look at the list of greenhouse gases and looking at the EPA's website. I want to show you guys the apples that I got at the farmer's market today for the horses. These are huge. This is another thing. So you would think that this is like a GMO apple. No, this is just an apple from California that got to be bussin'. And they had plums, and I love that you'll see like the leaves still on them and stuff like that. And you can really tell that they were just kind of plucked from the tree. Beautiful. The horses are gonna love these. Another aspect that I am well versed in is waste. I could be the trash queen if I wanted to. I know a lot about landfills, water reclamation facilities, and basically a lot about like the RCRA, like a waste act. I know a lot about landfills and how they work and how we get rid of waste all the way and the byproducts of that, because of course we can't get rid of waste without any sort of byproduct. And so even through like incineration, that's going to produce smoke, which is going to go up into the atmosphere. I would never want to work at a landfill. And so, you know, a lot of people, I don't know if they think this is a rumor or what, they're like, oh, you do realize that like the toilet water we have, like that's what's coming out of the sink. That's our drinking water. It sure is. But I'm gonna tell you what, it goes through a very, very, very extensive process to go from sewage water to drinking water. And when I tell you that everything that's coming out of your faucet, unless otherwise stated, is safe to drink technically. It should be technically up to standard. I just want to say that because when I came to Las Vegas, everyone was like, oh my God, this water, like they were acting like it was non-potable. You can drink this water from the tap and nothing's gonna happen to you. Nothing's gonna happen to you. You're not gonna get sick. Like it's hard, sure, but I'm from Maryland, and at one point I was living in Edgewater, which is basically Annapolis. Honey, try turning on the shower and it just seems like eggs are just falling at you, rotten eggs, because that's what it smells like. The shower is stained orange. Like, baby, these people don't even understand poor water quality. They don't even understand the like, I'm like this, okay. All right, here's the fruit that I got from the farmer's market today. Look how beautiful. I got a bunch of strawberries and then I got some plums because your girl loves plums. That's one thing about me. I love plums. The military put me onto that because they would feed us plums all the time. I don't know if they're cheap or something, but like they would always have plums out and I'd always take them. And like, so yeah, plums and strawberries. Something important about fruit. Oh, I caught it. Fruit from the farmer's market, there's no preservatives. So preservatives are meant to preserve said food. There's no preservatives here. They're not being sprayed with pesticides. They're not being, you know, there's no preservative here. So you're putting them in the fridge and you got a couple days, you know what I mean? So it goes bad quicker. A lot more than I could cover with my degree. I'm just gonna cover one last part of it, and that is the bird aspect. It stems from me having knowledge of ecosystems, food webs, keystone species, all that stuff, different species and like all the things. My minor was in biology, like I'm obsessed. However, I'm not a plant guru because I didn't take any botany classes. So this is pretty much me just going off of like, if I do this, then it should produce XYZ. So going super in depth into different ecosystems, their impact, and you know, different, you know, food triangles and what's going on, I really became interested in birds to an extent that I realized, okay, I should be writing stuff like this down. I should be documenting this. I should write a bird guide. So what I started to do was study just general bird behavior at first. Then I moved on to, and this goes to like beak shape, behavioral patterns, how big a bird is, how small a bird is, what species it might be, what family it might be in, etc. Watching and observing. Then I went on to the phase of feeding them different foods, doing different things, seeing what would happen. Then I started to document the different species that I would see. I got a hawk to come to the backyard. This is in Virginia. Then I moved out to the desert in Las Vegas. And since being here, I've kind of restarted because none of the birds that I was documenting before are here, except for like the, house finches and field sparrows and, stuff like that. I'm trying to make it Las Vegas based so that people who come here, if they want to see birds, they can pick up my bird guide. It can be, I want to do a brochure form, and then I want to do a book form. Essentially, what that means is that I just make note of different species that I see. I have an app on my phone where I can go around like this, and it picks up audio and it picks up the sound of the bird. And I'm using my camera, which is what I'm using right now, to take original photos. And if I don't have an original photo of said species, then my friend is the illustrator and she knows how to draw. It's kind of gonna take a while because, for example, they have the mountain bluebird here, which is like the state bird. You have to go up in Mount Charleston. You gotta go up where there's like elderberry bushes. Okay, you know how far you have to climb to find an elderberry bush? They're up there. So I'm gonna have to be like with my camera like this, but I'm willing to do that. With a degree in environmental management, if you are watching this and you have kids and you're like wondering, and you're kind of thinking about college, I want you to know that I have a very useful degree. This degree is highly marketable and highly useful. I'm doing independent stuff. That does not mean that I do not have a vast majority of jobs that I could do, such as working at a national park, working for the government, working for any of the government agencies that do literally anything that has to do with the environment. USDA, EPA, APHIS. Could work for an independent company. No part to this is that I'm also an OSHA queen. I was taught a lot about safety and OSHA and those regulations as well, so I could also come into any company as an environmental manager and have knowledge of safety regulations and essentially just make sure that the company is up to compliance, and if not, help them get to compliance. Pretty much like a little bit of what I could do with my degree if I were to get like a brick and mortar job. And honestly, I would recommend this degree 100%. It's hard. It was definitely very difficult to achieve. It's very science heavy, obviously, because it's a bachelor's of science, but it's very heavy in chemistry and physics and math. Like an air sample of 2 micrograms of sulfur dioxide was sampled at 1 ATM and 15 degrees Celsius. How many parts per billion how many parts per billion of SO2 is there in that particular air sample? It's like stuff like that where you're like, the question itself makes you be like, what? Then to go along with it is this like book of an equation that you have to do. I wasn't prepared for that, but you know what? I was on the dean's list basically every semester. Graduated with, I don't remember what my GPA was, but I graduated last year and I did not get to walk the stage, did not get to really celebrate and do anything really because my husband passed away the same week. I am very humbly grateful that you guys care to listen about my degree and want to know about my degree. I just feel like I got my degree and then time just went on. Like I love to talk about this stuff, so thank you guys for listening. And one last thing I'll show you. Cucumber, lemon. I love you guys. Bye.